up, guys? So today we're gonna be reading, the Neil Armstrong book, and today we're gonna be reading chapter 3 and 4. Chapter 3 is the wider world. When Neil started college, he had just turned 17. For the first time that he was living away from his family, he got to set grades, and he had lived in high school, but he wasn't focused on his studies, and the science classes were hard. He scrapped freshman year as kind of whirl. 2 years Sorry about that, folks. After 2 years at Purdue came 3 years in the Navy. This is when Neil Armstrong became an airman. He's stationed in Pensacola, Florida, and when he learned to fly small, single-engine fighter planes. Chuck Yeager. Chuck Yeager also liked flying. During World War II, he had a daring pilot who shot down enemy planes. After the end of war in 1945, he worked testing experimental planes. Scientists and engineers want to design a plane that could go faster, that the speed of sound. That is 61 miles per hour. By the late 1940s, a new plane called the Bell X-1 had been developed. Yeager was chosen to pilot it on his first flight. Even a horseback riding accident 2 nights before the flight didn't stop him. Fear that a doctor would tell his bosses that he wasn't fit to fly. Yeager went to bandage up his broken ribs. Only a month after Neil Armstrong started college, Chuck Yeager got into the cockpit on the X-1 and broke the sound barrier during a 14-minute flight. There isn't actually a real barrier to break, but the term is still used. Actually, since this is long enough, we'll just read this chapter today. At Pensacola, the training began with 20 short flights called hops. The instructor from front, Neil sat behind and had to pilot the plane, even though it was harder to see from the back. Neil was graded on every hoop. After that, Neil went on to fly solo. He also took courses in aeronautic engineering, and he at Purdue. He graduated on his wig pin from the flying training school in August of 1950. Now he was licensed Navy and Nader, and he was only 20 years old. He still had 2 years at Purdue. However, he did not return to college at plane. Why not? War had broken out, the Korean War, and more had lasted 3 years. The war sent Neil Armstrong halfway across the globe. The Korean Peninsula juts out into the Pacific Ocean. North Korea had a communist government, while South Korea is a democracy. The war began in 1950 after North Korea invaded South Korea. Right away, American troops went to South Korea's aid, and many other countries and the United Nations also joined the U.S. effort. Communist China and the USSR, however, sent soldiers to help North Korean forces. The fighting lasted for 3 years. Finally, the two sides agreed to a ceasefire. Ceasefire in July of 1953, as then there was still North Korea and South Korea. In Korea, Neil Armstrong belonged to Fighter Squadron 51. Squadron 51. He was one of the very youngest pilots. The squadron used to nail jets of a giant aircraft carrier called the USS. Neil's job was to bomb enemy bridges and railroad lines or scout areas where other planes would attack later on. To do this, Neil's plane had to fly very low and chose to the ground. During the Korean War, Neil flew on 78 missions. It was a dangerous and stressful job, but Neil never lost his cool. On one mission, Neil and his Panther jet plane making a low bombing run in the hilly area of Korea. Sadly, his plane was hit by the enemy gunfire. Neil was controlling the craft, took a stiff, hurtling towards the ground at 5 feet, 100 feet. Part of the right wing was shredded off. A cable struck the valley as a booby trap. Luckily, Neil regained control of the plane again and flew back to friendly territory. The plane was too badly damaged to land. Neil had to bail out of the plane. His silk parachute billowed out, and he landed safely in a rice paddy. 2 days later, he went aboard the aircraft carrier, except for a cracked tailbone. Neil was unhurt. Almost 34,000 Americans were killed in the Korean War. But Neil Armstrong returned home with many medals. Now it's time to finish up college, receive his diploma. That's it.
Okay.
I'm going to see how many chapters there are. There's about 13 or 14 chapters, alright? But since we already completed 3, the 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9. We have 9 more chapters, everyone. Alright? Zone Andrew signing off.